attack to me, or you get the Clinton coroner who's like, who's like,
Rami
spins the
Malek.
wheel, like tick 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 tick, like whatever it lands on is what he says the cause of death was.
Rami Malek, what a guy! He, Rami Malek, folks. If you're not familiar with the hashtag Clinton body count, he is the coroner who Bill Clinton's mom unalived someone when she was working in the medical profession. Some kind of mishap occurred, and Rami Malek came in and gave them whatever cause of death they deemed fit to clear the way for her not to be held liable. And they owed him for the rest of his life, apparently. And he came in and just, it doesn't matter what, you could be shot. He would say you were drowned if the Clintons wanted him to say you were drowned. Yeah. It was literally that insane.
It was the best investment the Clintons ever made. Of all the money that they stole, of all the people having a dirty coroner in your back pocket is like having Marty Bird, who owns a crematorium. You know what I mean? It's like the equivalent of that. So yeah.
All right, let's go over to the other big one in the news then, which is the Diddy trial, which has just started.
Yeah.
We saw pregnant Cassie has got up there. And what is your gut telling you on this one?
I think he's going down. I think he is, I think these guys are valuable until their antics are made public to everybody. And then, you can't run a sexual blackmail entrapment operation when everybody knows that you used to run one, everybody knows that you're in that business. It works the best when nobody knows that you're actually doing that. So he's of no use to them at this point, right? You're not going to go to, let's say he gets out and he's found not guilty. What are you going to do? Continue him in this role of having parties and getting people in compromising situations and things like that? Like, no, nobody's going to be that stupid to walk into that. So he has no value to them. So I don't see them bending over backwards to save him. I mean, I guess it depends on who's on the tapes. If it is what has been rumored to, and it is, and I obviously have no way of knowing this, but you start hearing about some famous politicians, we'll just put it that way, that were at the party. Well, then that changes things, because depending on how high level that person is, maybe they have a vested interest in this not going to where it goes. And maybe they make some phone calls and they've got some connections in judges. And we know about judges. It's just as easy to buy a judge as it is to buy a scientist, to buy a climatologist or whatever, right? So they're for sale. And in some cases installed specifically to make things go a certain way when they need to. So I guess I should say, I think he's probably going to go away for this, but I have to also recognize that depending on the quality of the content that he has collected, that may be a variable to consider, because if he's got Barack Obama on video, then that's a guy who can make a couple phone calls and all of a sudden things look very different. So I think that's something like, I don't know the extent of what the footage shows, but I think that has to be taken into consideration too. I mean, if it's just a case of this guy like to beat up women and we've got him on camera beating the hell out of Cassie in a hallway, if that's the extent of it, he's going to get convicted. But if it has to do with all the other stuff and it starts to get dangerously close to protected people, then all bets are off, because it's just going to vary based on what's in the content.
Yeah, because they're going after him for some bigger charges, criminal enterprise, and human transportation. So there's a lot more to prove, isn't there, than those individual incidents? They're like part of a pattern to indicate that he's running a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, and as you know, it's like there you have to prove quite a few things. If you can prove it, it's really bad for you. You start getting hit with like RICO charges and things like that. That's the bazooka that they bring out. But they also have to prove it. And you ask yourself, would they have the audacity to bring all these charges in such a obviously public case if they didn't have the goods on him? And that, listen, I'm making an assumption on that. But I would assume that somebody would say, we're not prosecuting this case. We're not doing this in front of the media and TMZ and the Daily Mail and all this stuff. We're not going to do this unless we are certain that we are going to win. And the only way we're going to win is that I need to know that we've got all the evidence on this guy and I got to see it. And then at that point, you would like to think that, right? That they have a strong case, because otherwise you're going to look incredibly stupid when you lose this case. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the amount of charges that they've brought, it's. But again, they could also play that game of like, we bring 1 million, we stack all these charges up, and then you start to plea down to a more reasonable amount, and then we get you and get that magnificent conviction rate that the feds are always talking about.
So there's been some seismic posturing in geopolitics from your leader in particular, and certain other world figures. We saw the Zelensky-Trump sit down just go completely viral. I mean, we've got this continuation of wars, Orwellian non-stop wars from the various criminal political dynasties in your country, the crime families, and then Trump comes in and I'm the peace president. I'm going to shut everything down. What do you make of him? Because it's like one day he says one thing, the next day he says something complete opposite. He has open dialogue with Russia, which many commentators such as Scott Ritter, Larry Johnson, etc., think is a good thing. And one day he's with Israel. Apparently this week he's not with Israel. So it's like he's all over the place. Is it just pure chaos, or is this some kind of calculated strategy?
I would be remiss if I didn't remind the audience that he is in the World Wrestling Federation Hall of Fame. Okay. It is really tough to know what's real and what's a character. What's this persona? As you said, he says one thing one day, he changes his mind, says something different the next day. And I would say pay less attention to what he says and more attention to what he does. I'm concerned about his Chabad Lubavitch ties, which ties him to Putin, which ties him to Netanyahu, which ties him to Zelensky. They're all part of this group. This is a really dangerous club. So part of this feels like pro wrestling to me. When he comes out and says, I'm ditching Netanyahu, he's not a good guy. We all know that. We see what Netanyahu is. He's the guy who brings his dirty laundry when he comes to stay at the White House so he can have the White House staff do it for him. He's a scumbag of extraordinary proportions and one of the most dangerous people out there. So you cheerlead when you hear Trump say he's going to move away from Netanyahu. You go, finally, thank God, right? But I know that there's more to this. It feels like theater. And so I'm hesitant to get, I try not to get too high or too low with the guy, because he can really frustrate you. And I try not to allow him to do that, because he's the ultimate, and then he'll troll somebody and he'll make a comment about somebody and you'll go, he's so likable. Like I was thinking the same thing, he calls Nancy Pelosi a old drunk, lunatic or something. And you go, yes, that's what so there's moments where you feel very connected to him because he'll say the things that you're thinking. But man, I have real doubts about him. My major concern is his technocratic, the Peter Thiels and the Sam Altmans and the Larry Ellisons. These guys, these hardcore technocrats are the ones that scare me this time. Last time it was John Bolton. who was trying to stir up war, and all the hardcore Ziocons. Those were the guys that made me nervous in Trump's first administration. Now it's all the Silicon Valley technocrat guys that are running the AI systems and are asking for, and are getting, $500 billion being announced in the first couple of days of Trump's administration. Like, we've got to be focused on what they're doing